I feel like I need to clarify some things that I said in my previous video because it seems to me that some people had misunderstood what I meant. Mainly I'm thinking about the part where I was talking about my age. Here's precisely what I said. I'm 27 already and not getting any younger. Or give it a serious try one last time before I get too old and my body starts falling apart. As far as I know, you can achieve your athletic peak performance until you're in your early 30s, so I still have a couple of years to go for it. Judging by the comments, some people understood me as saying that after you turn 30, you may just as well start sleeping in a coffin, just in case. That needs to be clarified because if you're in your 40s or 50s, hearing something like that from a young guy might be really demotivating. This is not the point I was making. The athletic peak performance that I mentioned is the age at which human body has the biggest potential to excel at a particular sport or activity. For strength-dominant disciplines such as calisthenics, you can achieve that peak in your late 20s or early 30s, and from there, the ceiling of that potential starts dropping down. But we're talking here about the maximal theoretical level that you could reach if you had trained properly for long enough. This, I believe, is the root of the whole misconception. Being past the age of your peak athletic performance doesn't mean that you cannot get super strong and fit anymore. And it doesn't mean that you cannot get more fit at 50 than you were at 30. It just means that at 50, you wouldn't be able to reach such a high level as you would at 30, given enough training in both cases. To visualize that concept, we can look at the top performers on gymnastic rings in the world. Let's check the age of the athletes in the finals of the last 3 Olympic Games. Most of them are in their mid and late 20s, with a few exceptions older than 30. Yovchev was almost 40 when he competed for the last time, but this guy participated in 6 Olympic events in a row. He's a legend and an exception to the trend. So why, apart from Yovchev, there are no 40-year-olds in the finals, despite the fact that a guy in his 40s could have at least 10 years more of practice than a 30-year-old? It's because they're already past their prime, and their bodies have a difficult time sustaining the amount of training necessary to keep up with the younger competition. They get injured more often, and their performance goes down despite having more experience. The way I see it, the athletic peak performance is a function of athlete's age and the amount of years he's been training. The longer you train, the bigger potential you have, but the older you get, the smaller potential. The moment these lines meet is the sweet spot where you can achieve your athletic peak performance. It's not necessarily an exact moment in time, but rather a range of a couple of years, because the way these lines look precisely is more of an individual issue, and it depends on the discipline, genetics, and the amount of dedication to training. In sports where speed and strength are the deciding factors, peak performance can usually be achieved only when you're young, before mid-30s. However, in disciplines which mainly require experience, technique and skill, peak performance can be achieved later in life, in one's 40s or even 50s. Of course, that's a general rule, and without a doubt there's a whole bunch of exceptions, but we can't deny that universal trend. Up till now, we were talking about the world-class athletes, people who have reached or got close to reaching their maximum potential. They've been training since they were 10 or even 5 to get to that point. That's not the case for most of us though. If you start training at 30, there's no chance that you will reach your maximum potential at 35. Even though the ceiling of your maximum potential is lowering every year at that point, you're nowhere near it. So you can keep on progressing and get in the best shape of your life at the age of 40, 50 or even later. The optimal age for calisthenics, where you can be the strongest version of yourself, is around 30, but this is assuming that you have been training long and hard enough to fulfill that maximal potential. And this takes probably somewhere between 10 or 20 years of proper training. Now tying it back to me. I started training at 20, but wasted a couple of years with lousy and unfocused training. I didn't mean that I won't be able to get better at calisthenics after I cross the age of peak athletic performance, because I won't reach my full potential by then. What I had in mind was that there's no better time to get serious about training than now, because the older I get, the harder it will be to reach my goals. Of course, I'm not thinking of getting into a world-class level, so it most likely would be possible to reach them even in my late 30s or 40s. But if I don't go for it now, it's only gonna get more difficult as time passes. Most of us, me included, haven't realized our full potential, so don't get discouraged thinking that you're past your prime. Just keep going forward towards your goals and you'll get there eventually. Maybe not as quick as you would have if you'd started training at 15, but who cares about what-if scenarios? The present moment is all that's real.